welcome to the Cynthia Lennox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Lennox. And I'm here to remind you that this is the best season of your life. There is just no way around that whole thought pattern. Once you engage in that thought, you will see and start looking at all the good things that are happening in your life. You know, you can't control things that are happening around you, but things that are directly connected to you, you can identify, you will recognize, you will acknowledge them, admit it, and enjoy it. Don't feel any kind of way. You know, somebody said to me, you know, with all that's happening around the world, they felt a little guilty even going out and having fun and enjoying themselves. Well, look, you cannot solve everyone's problem, but at least we'll have some happy people around. And when that is so, then we can regard others with the same self-worth and the same consideration, the same empathy and so forth. So it changes our way of thinking. I shared over the weekend an experience that I had. And the more I am evolving, the more I am coming into that space of designing and creating my identity. Because remember, okay, so, you know, this whole journey of self-discovery, this identity architecture lab is part of that. We understand that discovering or journeying to discover your self-identity is really going back to the original blueprint, to the original manuscript of who you were meant to be when you were born, before you had all the influence from external sources, you know, your teachers, your parents, your ministers, pastors, preachers, society, you know, by social construct, traditional values, conventional norms, all of those external forces shaped who you are. This morning I went to this seminar this morning and I had a great time explaining it or sharing this actually with someone. And you could see that they were like, oh yeah, you're right. So the point is, if you don't change that, then you will be living a performative life. Either that or you will be living performatively, people pleasing, compromising your standards, or you may not even have any standards at all, or not even recognize the standards that you have set for yourself, or perhaps you have not even established any standard. Why? Because you're simply living life by default and living life on autopilot, not living intentionally. That's where the gusto lies. When you start living life on purpose, doing things on purpose, recognizing every moment, because the most valuable asset that you have is your time. And if you don't commit your time to self first, then nothing else matters. You know, sometimes we make such a commitment to people, to other things that doesn't even concern us, and then we run short. You know, we short ourselves from the moment of being totally present. So anyway, I was sharing this with this person this morning, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you're right." And they, you know, you could see that the light bulb turn on, and I know that this person is going to walk away with that thought about, who am I? Am I functioning at my optimum potential? Am I being totally present in who I am? And so I was really happy to share that. I'm always happy to bring people to that place of awareness, because even whether they watch my show or not, just to have the understanding, some people are given to anxiety, depression, and just different types of emotion, jealousy, competing with others or comparing themselves to others, jealousy, envy, and all of those kind of emotions And that's because, again, they don't know who they are. Because when you know who you are, there is no reason for you to compete. There is no reason for you to compare. There's no reason for you to try to be like someone else, or even become a people pleaser. That's something that a lot of people, I don't remember ever being a people pleaser, simply because, and again, whether I had language for this whole dynamics or not, because in the past I didn't. But the way I live, the way I think, the way I conducted my life certainly gives certainty to what I share. Their lived experience. This is the way that I have been all my life, pretty much. There's certain things that I know that I would not tolerate, and people pleasing is one. I am not a people pleaser. I would, do things. I will compromise. It all depending on the situation, but I am not here to please people so that they can like me. Because my thing is, it's just like my show. I said to someone, this show is not for everyone. It's not. Not everyone is gonna know what I or want to even pause. But there are over, like, what, 8 billion people on Earth. So, you can't worry about the little things. You can't worry about things like that. Why? Because once you know who you are, and the desire is always to give. The desire is always to help someone. So the way I see it is that I get to help you. You that would take the time to pause and listen and start really mulling over the things that I share, because it's for you. And remember, I am not here to tell you how to live. I'm not here to tell you who to be. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to remind you that you are a magnificent creative being, and that you have the ability to live a life that is fulfilled, a life that's happy and content, and you can design the lifestyle that you desire for you. Whatever works for you is what matters. As I was sharing, I am learning a lot of things about myself as well, and the standards that I am setting up, it really fits with me, fits with who I am, and it feels good. It feels good. And when I think of myself as a creative being, it puts me in a position of self-authorship, personal governance, personal sovereignty. I like that, because what happens is that it takes away your dependence on others as you assume full responsibility for yourself, total responsibility for yourself. The decisions you make and the consequences that it produces, you take total responsibility. You acknowledge whatever it is. Now, over the weekend, I had a little situation with an organization that I deal with, and I made a mistake. I made a huge mistake that would cost me some money, and I didn't want to lose any money. None of us want to lose money, but anyway, the mistake was mine. So I called and I said, look, this is the situation. I clicked on this and blah, 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 etc. And I know it's my fault. I take full responsibility for it, but I'm going to ask you to waive the penalties for that mishap. I have been with this organization for the longest time, and look at my record. My record is impeccable, and I'm going to ask you to waive it. So the first person that I got online, they looked at it and they tried to do something, I guess, by automation, and it showed no. It showed no, absolutely not. And he said, well, let me, I said, well, is there someone else that can do it? Because I know that when you use the default on a system, that happens automatically based on the stats, based on the logistics, based on the facts. I said, but I know that there is a way the human element can override it. And that's what I'm asking for. So I said, is there someone, is there a manager? Is there someone above you that can do it? And they said, well, not immediately here, but I can transfer you to the senior resolutions people. They handle big cases and so forth, and we could see. So they transferred me, and evidently they didn't communicate what the situation was. So I had to start all over again. And with it, of course, I had a little bit of emotion, and when I say emotion, I wasn't like hysterical. I just said, look, I made a mistake. This is a situation. Look at my record, my account. Look at all my data, and you can see that this has never happened. So I'm asking you to remove the penalties for that mishap. And they looked at it, and they said, well, evidently they tried to do the same thing by automation, and it said no. And I said, look at my record, and look at the longevity. My record is stellar. I just went on to say all that. So they said, well, no, we can't do it so and so. And I said, okay. So I hung up. An hour later, I called back, and I got another person. And they looked at the record, and they said, and I said, immediately, I said, well, my situation is a little different. You may need to transfer me to a senior management person who can make decisions. And they did. And I got this senior person. And this senior person said, now this is the third person I'm talking to. And the senior person said something like, they said, well, there's just nothing I can do. Let me check with another manager, I guess a senior manager, to see if they can do anything manually. And there was no one available at the moment to make the changes and so forth. So I said, anyway, they had me online for a while. They asked me if I wanted to hold. I said, yes, I'll hold as long as I need to. They came back online, and they said, well, they're going to be on for a long time with someone else, and that they would call me back in 24 hours. By this time, it's about midnight. And I said, well, it's, my neck of the woods. It's midnight. And they said, no, we are mindful of your time, and they will not call you, until later on in the day. And I said, fine. Now, later on in the day, no one called. In the meantime, I had to really bring myself into a place of calm, because when you are kind of out of sorts, it's like my nervous system was dysregulated, and I had to get it back regulated. I had to make sure that my nervous system was regulated so that I could exercise the right emotional intelligence and not really let my emotions get involved or anything of that sort. So later on the following day, they didn't call me. So I called them. But before I called them, I said to my husband, I said, this situation has to work out in my favor. I said, there's just no other option. I said, it has to work out in my favor. By then, the call was made with a sense of certainty. I knew the results. I wanted that I was going to get that result. I knew it. So they, Madesh answered the phone. I may be pronouncing it kind of like a Michael, but for something else. Anyway, they answered the phone, and I went through the whole situation. Evidently, the previous managers documented the record with the situation, with the grievance that I had. And I said, listen, I said, I don't know what your note says, but this is the situation. I made a mistake. I clicked the wrong button. Anyway, the point is, I explained the whole thing to him, and I said, and I don't believe that you can help me. It was the first point of entry. I said, I don't believe that you can help me. So I'm going to ask you to transfer me to a senior management person. And he was just so kind. And Mrs. Lennox, how is your day going today? I said, well, I just started it and I really need to get this resolved. It's like, I didn't want to engage in any kind of small talk because this for me was bigly. So I said, can we, anyway, I said, my day just started, but, I'm really wanting to get this. And he said, well, let me take a look and let me see if I can help you. I was a little surprised because I know that the other times that I called, the first point of entry, they couldn't help me because they are like, I guess, junior on the scale or whatever. So this person said, let me see if I can help you, meaning before having to transfer you to a senior person. And they said they looked at it and just went through a lot of gymnastics, mental gymnastics. I don't know what he was doing. And then he said, well, I have good news for you. So in my mind, I'm thinking the only good news you can have is removing the penalty, removing that penalty that the system generated because of my error. He said, I'm going to remove the penalty. I see that you have been a loyal customer for a long time, and your account is mint with us. No flaws, and this is the first time this has happened. And then he went on to say, well, this happens to the best of us, and no worries, Mrs. Lennox, no worries. And he was just going on and on and on. And he actually removed it. He actually removed it. Look, after that, I really didn't care what else he said, but I was so grateful. I said, this has been a little bit stressful because in my mind, this is something that could have been handled at the first point of contact the first time. But I said, you are the fourth person that I am dealing with. And anyway, he went on to, compliment me about the my record, the logistics, the data, all of that, and so forth. So anyway, things got resolved to my satisfaction 100%. What am I saying with that? I am saying that when we say that we are magnificent creative beings, I'm talking about all of your life. You can make things happen. Now, I couldn't tell him what to do. I couldn't, I didn't go on there like, with any kind of attitude or victim mentality or, trying to be a badass or tough person. No, I changed my way of thinking. And when I made a decision, it came from a place of certainty and not desperation. I just knew there was no other option. I knew that something had to be done in my favor. I just knew that. I am not one to threat or bluff and all that. Oh, I'm going to sue you guys. No, because that was not even an option. That's not how I was thinking. I'm not about to take on a big worldwide organization. It just doesn't work that way. But I went in with a sense of certainty. I knew that it had to be done. And what happens is that, when your nervous system is regulated, it allows you to think critically. critically. And when you think critically, of course, you are emitting, your vibrational frequency comes off differently. You are emitting a different type of energy. My friends, whether you believe it or not, it is the truth. That works. At least it's my truth. It works for me. And I always say, discover what works for you and do that. And with that, I start thinking, I came to my husband and I said, once I get off the phone with this person, with this guy, I came and, high five, and I said, it's been done. I'm fine. And it's settled. And, we toasted and felt great, simply because, and it's not even a matter of having to pay X amount of dollars for penalties and all that. It's the principle. For me, it was the principle. We have a relationship and things may happen. That's not that egregious that you can't override it. And I said, look, I know how this works. I've worked in corporate America, and the system is programmed to default on certain responses based on the input. But at the same time, there's that button that's called override. And I know it exists because having been in a leadership position in corporate America, I had to do it all the time. I made those decisions. It's a human decision. So anyway, I was so ecstatic. And what I'm saying here is that once you understand who you are, this is a matter of identity, my friend. Once you understand who you are, and it's not that, you come on trying to boss up, and no, I knew the value of the person that's making a decision. They have instructions to be followed. They have guidelines and rules and regulations and all those things that they have to follow. But at the same time, I also have, in my mind, the right to some kind of grace or something, some kind of consideration. And based on a business transaction, in my mind, I thought that was the right thing to do. And obviously, ultimately, this person did as well. But I allowed myself that pause, that overnight pause. And, when I went to bed, I decided that, I'm not going to take it with me, because my nervous system was already dysregulated, and I needed to make sure that I had a good night's sleep and regulate my system, wake up with a different mindset, and decide what I wanted done. And it's funny because when I woke up, I allowed some time, because I thought that they would have called me. And that could have happened, except that it could have happened later. So after a while, I decided I would call. I kind of knew like the exact time. I knew when I had to do that, and it was effective. When you are designing your art, your identity, remember, you are the architect of your identity. If you are not constructing, if you are not building, if you are not engineering a new sense of self, then you are functioning performatively on an identity that was imposed upon you, an identity that you inherited, an identity that you inherited by tradition, conventional norms, school, social construct, religious indoctrination at home, your parents, teaching behaviors, patterns that you adopt. And that's by default. All of us have been subject to that, because when you're born, all you know is what you've been taught. And unless you, when you become of age, have a mind of curiosity. See, with me, it was like curious. I told you I was expelled from boarding school 3 times because of an excessive curious mind. I got into mischiefs. Not because I was bad, I just got into mischief. I was curious about everything. And if they say don't go there, I would wonder why. Like what's on the other side? And I would just do that. And until this day. But I spent a period of my life where I kind of hesitated, vacillated, complied, obeyed per se, but I always had questions. And came a point where I said, no mas. I'm going to figure this thing out for myself. And I'm telling you, it was the best decision that I made. I set up new standards for my life, new non-negotiables. I set up boundaries. I set up, you get to know your worth, your value, and you start functioning by the truth you know. I wanted to get rid of limiting belief system. And that's the thing that keeps a lot of you stuck. And it's not really because you want to be stuck. It's simply all I had to do, my friend, was to make a decision. And you are the same as well. But the question is, how committed are you? How committed are you, to yourself? What is your commitment to yourself? If you're at work and your manager, boss says to you, I need everyone to be in at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. We're going to have a meeting. We're going to have a staff meeting. Guess what? You're going to get up at 4:30, 5 or whatever, and you're going to be in the office for that 6 o'clock meeting. Why? Because there's a commitment. You have a commitment. Why? Because you know that if you're not, this person is responsible for your livelihood. If you don't comply with the mandate, it could cost you. It could cost you your livelihood. Now think about yourself. How committed are you to yourself? How committed are you to yourself? Look at your calendar. Look at your calendar, and it will show you how committed you are to yourself, to taking care of yourself, to prioritizing yourself, to nurturing yourself. How committed are you to you? And remember, it's not selfishness. Selfishness is when you don't think of anyone. You don't regard anyone else. This is self-awareness. And the more you get to know yourself, the best version of yourself you will give to your family, your partner, your kids, your relative, friends. You will be given the best version of yourself. Talking about standards, I did something or decided something recently, as I am becoming aware of the things about me that, something needs to be modified, changed, or I need to really set up new standards for me. And I think I've shared this before. One of the things that kind of grinds me a little bit is this whole thing with tipping. We enjoy eating out. That's something that we do almost every weekend. That's one of the pleasures that we give ourselves. Going to a new restaurant, discovering new dishes, and just being in a totally different. It's like I said to my husband, the food is fine, but I like ambiance. I like energy, place with energy, with nice ambiance. That's one of the pleasures that we give ourselves. So the fact that we enjoy that and we get to give ourselves that pleasure, of course, tipping becomes a big issue. Tipping becomes part of that dynamics. And I have had issue with this because I don't want you to tell me how much or that I have to tip. That just rubs me the wrong way. But when we go to places that not every place, we have been to like a couple of places that have the gratuities included, and whatever. And even if the person did a great job, even if the gratuities is included, I'm gonna, we like to anyway acknowledge, recognize the person that has served us. But I have this thing about tipping. When you go places, you go and you have a carry out. You go to the ice cream place and you have a carry out, and they flip that pad around and it says tip, 15, 20, 22, 25%. Skip. I just do skip. Now, I realize that I'm going to have to come up with something. I'm going to have to just change my attitude, change my mindset, change my whole thing, because when we go, one of the first things that I check is to see that, to make sure that it's not included, the tip. Usually they tell you before. Anyway, so I had to come up with something that works for me, change my whole mindset so that I can be at peace and I can really enjoy the moment from beginning to end. Because when we go, one of the first things that we order is a glass of wine. And then, we have a ritual where we do a toast to life and just being able to do the things that we want to do. So I said, okay, I'm going to have to come up with something new. Tipping is really a reward for service. I understand that. And based on the service that you deem, whether it was good or bad or excellent, you decide the tip that you want to give. At least that's the way my mind ran. And that's the collective. That's the way it's done. That's the way it is expected. And that's the way everyone does it. Of course, for me, when we go out, I always make sure that I have cash, because I like to be able to give the person, the server, cash and not put it on the credit card. We never do that. Put the tip on the credit card, because in my mind, it belongs to the server, not to be distributed with the cook and hostess and all, none of that. So I said, I'm going to do something different. When I get to the restaurant, because my whole thing about me, remember, you're thinking about you're thinking about who you are, and you're changing your identity, and you're coming into a space where you know who you are, and you love who you are, and you trust yourself, and you see things differently. And in my mind, I have a great relationship with abundance. Some people have a relationship with scarcity. And, that's when you hold back and, but no, I have a great relationship with abundance. It's not about money. I always, in my mind, it just circulates. And the more I am able to give, it just comes right back to me. So in my mind, I know and I acknowledge, admit, recognize that I am a generous person. And that is something that's established in my mind. I am a generous person, and I am going to exercise generosity every opportunity that I get. Now, I'm trying to figure out, how do I do this without, throwing anything off? So what I have decided to do with this tipping thing, I decided to stop tipping. No tip. As a matter of fact, I don't even want to hear the word no tip. I don't want to hear tip, because that just goes against my thinking. So we decided, or I'm just talking about me. I decided I'm not going to tip anymore. So, and of course, tipping happens at the end of service, and it's all judged by the patron based on the quality of service, the quality of food, and all the things related to the experience of dining or whatever service you're getting. So what has worked for me now, when I go to a restaurant, when I go to a restaurant, uh, I've got, you know what kind of monies you're going to spend, and it doesn't have to be, when I did tip in the past, I was never guided by that, uh, the options that they give you, 15, 20, 22%. I was never guided by it. I just gave whatever I thought was good. And it was always, a whole lot more than that, simply because, and today, these servers, they're really kicking it up. They're really doing a fantastic job. I cannot even tell you the last time that we had a bad experience. I don't even know that we've ever had a bad experience at any place, because people are just nice and forward and generous and so forth. So at the beginning, when they come to the table and they bring the menu and they ask you what would you like to drink and so forth, and so forth. So what I am doing now, instead of tipping, I am gifting in advance. And that just blows my own mind, because tipping is at the end, and that's what the collective does. That's what everybody does. I mean, tipping is at the end. And I was trying to figure out a way, what's going to work for me? What is going to work for me? What's going to, where I don't get all, this whole thing about tipping, because it doesn't resonate with me. So instead of a tip, I'm going to gift the server a monetary gift before we have the experience. And then I had to say, okay, so if you gift her or him, if you gift them a monetary advance or whatever, monetary gift, if you give them a monetary gift, what are your expectations? What are your expectations, Cynthia? Do you expect to be treated any kind of way better than anyone else or whatever? And then I had to bring it down and think, no, that is not what I should be expecting. When I gift in advance, it's because I recognize the worth, the value, and I'm showing appreciation for that person. It's about my generosity and the person that's going to be serving me. And even because, just imagine if I gift someone a certain amount of money, and let's say they're having a bad night and things turn out so crazy that our food is delayed, the steak is not cooked to our satisfaction, they forget to bring the glass of wine. What if things don't work out the way that would be defined as excellent service? What would that do to me? How would I feel? How would I think? Would I be disappointed? Would I think, oh, here I am gifting her X amount of dollars, and this is the crappy service we got? Is that the way I'm going to think? I had to make all those decisions in my mind to set up a standard, so that I would be fine. But the thing about it is this: when I do that, my friend, the expression of surprise and gratitude, the expression in that person's presence is just a wonderful experience. And I don't make any big deal. You just fold the money, and when you're giving el cartel, the menu, when you're giving her back the menu, her or him back the menu, you just say, and this is for you. And sometimes I've said, well, we don't tip, but this is for you. And that's it. So that at the end, they're not expecting a tip. And they walk away, number one, shocked. Well, guess what? That is something that I decided for me. That's what's going to work for me, not for anyone else. That is for me. Why? Because I am taking care of me. I want to make sure that my dining experience becomes, and of course, it's a new standard that I have established now. If I'm going out with someone, there's a lot of flexibility with this, because if I'm going out with someone, a colleague, a friend, or something, I'm not going to put on a show. I am just going to see how the situation is. If I am picking up the tab, then I can do that. But if it's each take care of their own, then that's a whole different situation, because you don't want to appear as if you put your friends at a disadvantage. So you have to be mindful about that. You have to be use discretion and be mindful about that. So there is no rigidity to this whole concept. But I'm telling you, I am liking this whole approach. I am loving it. It brings me joy. And what happens is that, I keep thinking of myself as a generous person. And I mean generous, not just, oh yeah, they're a giver. No. I mean generous. And as I give, it comes back to me. As I give, but that's not the motivation. The motivation is so that the person can know that, I see you. I see you. I see your effort. I appreciate what you're doing. I know your worth. And I want to give you a gift before you even start doing what you're going to do. And I don't set myself up for any kind of expectations, because chances are, in most cases, of course, the service is just impeccable. And who knows, the service, by default, is generally impeccable. It all depends on the restaurants that you go to. It's usually nice and people making an effort and so forth, because of the type of restaurant it is. So they're putting out, making a great effort. And so, when you say to someone, just imagine if if I was a server and someone did that to me. As a matter of fact, we went on one of the cruises that we were, when we arrived to our cabin, we had already planned this, and we put some money in an envelope, and we saw the cabin steward. They were just exiting our room, or they had just finished our room. And we said, we talked to him and we said, how are you and whatever. And he was saying, just let me know if there's anything else that you may need while you're on board. Just let me know. My name is so-and-so. Just let me know, blah, blah, and all of that. And so my husband, he already had the envelope with money in it. And he gave him an envelope. And so the steward said, oh, no, sir, tipping happens at the end of the cruise. Well, we know that. We've been on 27 cruises. We know all that. So he goes, tipping is at the end of the cruise. And so we said, we know. This is just the beginning. This guy was aghast. He was so shocked. He didn't believe it. He could not even understand, why would you do that? And with that, he says, thank you so much. This week is really, my last week before my vacation. I get to go home for 1 month, and he start talking to us about his family. What happened there? You see the dynamics? This person felt so relaxed to start sharing his family dynamics with us. We weren't looking for a personal conversation, but this person was so happy, and he had not even opened the envelope to know, to see like how much money is in there. It could have been $1, but my husband always talk about giving the what do you call it? The unexpected delight. That's what he always says. We'll give somebody the unexpected delight. And it's something that he likes to do, and myself as well. I just call it, be extremely generous with your resources, because if you have the resources and you get to do that, that is fantastic. And it doesn't matter. It does not matter. It's not, in this case, my friends, it's not the money. It's the thought. It's the gesture. It's you setting up an identity. This has become now a ritual. A ritual. This is what we do, regardless of what the collective does, regardless of what everyone else does, regardless if everyone wants to tip at the end of the journey, at the end of the meal experience. That's fine. But for us, if you're going out and you know that you're going to spend, I don't know, X amount of dollars, then you can figure it out. And you don't tip by like percentage. You just tip generously. Give somebody, when you start thinking in with that mindset, things change for you. Things change in your own life. You start attracting things, opportunities, situations, benefits. You start attracting things without even, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even go looking for that, and it came to me. That's what happens. And you just continue to do it over and over and over and over and over again. It becomes part of you. It becomes that now is my identity when it comes to tipping. So I don't even think in terms of tipping. Again, if I go out and I'm in a group, then of course I'm not going to be that rigid that I don't collaborate or pay my share. If everybody's getting individual tabs, then of course I'm going to do it at that time. You want to use discretion so that you don't put anyone in a situation, because you never want to put a server in a situation where they're thinking, well, this is a gift, but you're going to tip. No. One occasion I was able to say, I said, we don't tip. I said, but here's a gift for you. We appreciate your service, or we appreciate the service that you are about to give us, whatever. I am designing what works for me. You can step out of the box. You can get rid of the box. You don't have to follow tradition, conventional norms. You don't have to follow rules, laws, regulations. And of course, when I say laws, I mean laws imposed by man. You don't do this, you don't do that. You do what works for you. You decide what your life is going to be like. You decide what your lifestyle is going to be like. You decide the standards that you want to set up. You decide the boundaries that you want to implement for your life. You decide on the non-negotiable. It's like the experience I had with that company. It was non-negotiable that they would not give me the benefit of that situation. In my mind, that was a non-negotiable, because it just happens that way. You send out that, I was vibing at a high frequency on that day. Perhaps not the day before when I got no like 3 times, but on that day, I was vibing at a higher frequency. And things turned out in my favor. My friend, again, you are the architect of your identity. And a lot of people try to fix themselves or fix a situation, fix themselves from an identity they did not create. You don't even know. Look, you need beams. You need, I think they call it brackets, trestles. You need, and the deeper the beams, the stronger it's going to be. Your non-negotiables. The deeper, when you have winds of adversities that come your way, if you have established a certain standard for yourself to deal with situations, if you have established a certain standard, then when you have the wind of adversities that come your way, you will know how to handle it. Why? Because your beams, again, as an architect, you have built yourself in a way with standards, a mindset, critical thinking skills, emotional intelligence. You have built up, and you know that you are designing. You go, there's the builder, there's the engineer, there's the designer, there's the architect. You are all of it. It's sweet, my friend. The life it brings you, is sweet. And the fact that you get to do the things that you want to do, that you enjoy doing, your life, you get to live it the way you want to live. And in most cases, it mitigates all the negative things and the experiences. Why? Because just like I said, I was having an unfavorable experience with that issue on Saturday, but then on Sunday, I was vibing at a different frequency, and things turned out totally different in my favor. I went in with certainty, confidence. I was assertive, and I didn't, and it's like the right person was set up, because if he had said no, I would have strategized some other way. But I didn't have to do that. Why? Because I was vibing at a different frequency, and the energy that I was sending out, it was so pleasant. This guy, I told you, first he wanted to small talk. How is your day going? I didn't want to hear all of that. I wanted to make sure that we resolve my issue first before we can engage in any kind of small talk. And it worked in my favor. When you understand the whole dynamics of self-authorship, personal sovereignty, self-governance, that's not telling people what to do or how to, no. That's you taking responsibility for yourself. This whole thing with the tipping, I had to, it was a thing for me. And I'm only sharing that with you so that you can know that you don't have to be governed or guided by what everyone else does. You can create your own ritual, your own thing. For us, we every time my husband and I go out, wherever we go, whether it's a glass of wine or a margarita, it's cheers to life. Cheers to a good life. You qualify it, because just having life is just, everybody, those of us that are alive, it's just life. But cheers to a good life. You're like speaking into the universe. You are speaking into your surrounding. You are speaking, you are declaring, you are establishing the type of life you want to have. Cheers to a good life. For us, that is a ritual. We do that at home. When we are home and we are having a glass of wine, we toast. Don't think it's something eccentric. Once you start setting up your standards, your ritual, the things that work for you, that's, you're responsible for that. You're not subject. The whole thing is this. I was going to say, amigos, the whole thing is this. Do not ask for permission to make changes in your life. Don't ask for permission. Don't wait to be granted permission. Once you become committed to designing your own identity, you're going to look at things so differently. You're going to look at life differently. You're going to look at people. You're going to suffer loss of relationship, loss of habits, patterns that you yielded to in the past, things with, one of the things that I was talking with someone and they said that when you work for certain government workers or whatever, they would always say, we've always done it this way. That's the way we do it. We've always done this way. And they're so locked in to a system. Mind you, not even given expansion in their mind to know that something can work better. Something can be more efficient. Something can be more effective. Allow yourself, my friend, allow yourself the freedom to expand, keep an open mind, and change things, even if it seems crazy to the average mind. It doesn't matter. If it works for you, it's like I had to determine what worked for me. I didn't want to have this whole bad feelings about tipping. And now, because I know I have the option, if I go out with friends, if I go out with friends and I know that I'm going to have to, do it if we were paying like separate bills or whatever, or even if we were paying collectively, I'm going to do what I need to do. So I'm flexible. But the feeling I have toward this whole tipping culture has changed, because for me, it used to be a thing. I just don't like anyone telling me that I have to do it and then how much. Now, if I go to a place that I like and they have it included in there, the gratuities, I just deal with it. But if the person is like, if I feel moved to give that person a gift, I call it a gift. You're gifting a gift to that person, your server. Make someone's day. I just want to make your day. I just want to make your day. And then you have the cash, you fold it, and you say, you give the card. That's me. You can do whatever works for you. That just work. And you say, I just want to make your day. Thank you. We'll have a glass of wine. and that works. My friend, you are the architect of your identity. And don't waste time. Remember, you don't need fixing. You don't need healing. You don't need repairing. You don't need none of that. You just need to make a decision of the lifestyle that you want to enjoy now. All it takes is a decision. I'm going to leave you with that thought so that you can sup on it. We meet here every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you can't join me at that time, you see the icons over here, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. You can pick up the stream 24/7. If you wish to drop me a note, the address here, it says info@thecynthialennoxshow.com. You can drop me a note, and if there's something in particular that you would like me to share, I will do that. Or if you have any questions regarding things that I share, I will make sure that I incorporate that next week and so forth. A lot of wonderful things are happening. I've been saying that I want to make some changes with the show and so forth. It's happening, but again, certain things just, have to be set up. So I'm going to see you next Thursday, same time, same place, right here. And in the meantime, tomorrow you have to go to work. For those of you that are still in in the work arena. But have a fantastic weekend, whatever you do, and be safe. And we have a holiday coming up, so I know some of you are planning what you're going to do. Anyway, enjoy this weekend. I will see you next. And